Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Fandom Fridays, where we proceed to check out the fanfics that are not pony related. Why? Because it's Halloween, and if you want to check out any pony fics that are Halloween centric, check out the main stuff during the weekdays. But right now, let's check out some good haunting stories. Now, I know I said I would focus a lot on Buffy and Supernatural during this month, but then I realized, wait a minute. There's another ghost related thing that I love so much. Another show featuring ghosts and demons. One that started off with a mystery about ghosts, whose whole entire arc began with a character who was dead. That's right. For the first time in the show, we're exploring one of my favorite among us, Yu Yu Hakusho. So, sit back, relax, as we here at the Treeberry Memorial Library are proud to present My Immortal by Itomato. Enjoy. Warning, the following songfic is based off of My Immortal from Evanescence. If you do not like Evanescence, then please leave the channel right now. My Immortal by Itomato. Chapter 1. Only chapter. It had only been a few days. Not even 4 entire days had passed. It was too soon. This was why Keiko had absolutely no idea how she managed to pull herself out of bed and get to school. Only her closest friends had been talking to her. Seems like no one else bothered to. She was getting a little tired by it. Yesterday had been her first day back at school since the accident, and no one was talking to her. The school was still empty, just like she was. She thought that maybe people were afraid to say anything to her. Most of her classmates had seen her reaction at the wake, and were a little shocked by it. The quiet, reserved Yukmera Keiko exploding at a juvenile delinquent's wake? She knew what she had done. She couldn't stop it. The silence from her peers was getting on her nerves, and she was getting sick of it. She just wanted to get tired at home. I'm so tired of being here. Everyone would chatter away amongst themselves as she walked through the walls. She ignored them, filling up her ears with invisible plugs of sorts, blocking out all sound. She had barely spoken to anyone, even her 2 best girlfriends. Ah, those 2 girls from the first episode. Yeah, they had about as much to do with the plot as those 2 girls from Sailor Moon. You know, the chubby one and the skinny one who used to hang out with Usagi. First episode. They were in the weight gain episode. Right there. They used to hang around with Naru. They were over there. She replied with a yes, or a no, or an okay sound. She didn't know why. She felt a bit immature for doing so, but something inside just told her to be like that. It was like a melancholic sea surrounded her, keeping the goon trapped, keeping her words trapped. It was as if she was being stopped like this. It would be wrong. She felt like this was how she was supposed to be. Suppressed by all my childish fears. She remembered the days when she yelled at him a lot, get fed up with him for skipping class, and most of the time school altogether. But now he never skipped school again. It just wouldn't happen. Sorry, Keiko. I have to go. Please take care. She nodded non-commitment like her friend had. She just walked away. She knew he was gone. He wouldn't be coming back. She had to get over it, even if it took her entire life. And if you have to leave, I wish that you would just leave. She walked down the empty halls, her footsteps echoing in every direction. She heard a pipe clatter and jumped, looking at the direction it came from. She sighed. Just a noise in the wall, Keiko. Just a pipe, she told herself. She looked back at the wall, and her eyes wandered to the nearby classroom. It was the detention classroom, where he often spent his days after school, when he showed up. She took a few steps toward it and pulled open the door, looking inside. Her eyes instantly landed on his reserved desk, which had numerous scribbles all over it. She stepped backwards and slammed the door shut, making the loud bam bounce across the hall. She quickly got away as she walked away from the room, wanting to get it out of her mind. She froze as she passed the stairway that led to the roof, climbed it so often, and held to climb it even more every day, to find him, because your presence still lingers here. Without thinking, she climbed the stairs rapidly, getting faster as she reached the top. She reached a sprint when it flung open to the door to the roof. It stopped short in its threshold. A light breeze played with her hair and danced with her skirt. It flew up in the air as she left the stairway and walked to the roof itself. Pervert, she found herself whispering as the skirt lightly landed around her knees. She found her head twisting around as she looked up, vision blurred by the setting sun. The small elevated part of the roof above the staircase, where he was usually found. Her hand reached to the air and grasped something non-existent. And it won't leave me alone. She stumbled backward and leaned to the wall, feeling tears to try and escape her eyes. They wouldn't stop, even when she begged them to. She sank to her knees, back completely forgotten the ground near her feet. She clutched her skirt tightly as more crystalline tears fell from her distant brown eyes. Why? She whispered to herself. She gripped her skirt so tightly, wondering if it would rip. Loose strands of hair fell onto her eyes, hiding her blonde face as she cried. It hurts, she whispered. Why are you here? Her skirt was getting soaked through and through, as tears continuously fell. It wrinkled under her tight grasp. These wounds won't seem to heal. This pain is just too real. She forced her eyes to look at the sky, staring at the setting sun. Its rays didn't even make her flinch. This was nothing to her anymore. Hours and hours were spent up here on the roof. She could barely remember every last day. There had been too many. She found herself rising on shaking legs and used a hand to lean on the wall for support. She pulled open the door and headed back downstairs. Up here was just too depressing. She ran through the halls, wanting to escape the school that she had spent 2 years without him. Now those years, and all else, seemed like a distant memory that could not be forgotten. She nearly shattered the glass on the main doors as he flung them open in anger, sending them crashing into the walls behind him. As he left the ground at last, she felt her eyes welling up. Everything was a reminder of him. She walked this path every day for years to come, and he would always pop into her mind. There's just too much that time cannot erase. She made her way home through the empty park. She didn't feel like seeing any people. This close to dark, barely anyone entered the park. Most, in fact, were on their way home already. And if this were a hentai fit lemon, this would be where I get nervous. Once he entered the playground area, she regretted coming this way. Nearly every day of her childhood was spent in this park, tumbling down the side, swinging in the breeze, spinning on the merry-go-round. It was all with him. She watched as the dark-haired boy fell off the swing and skinned his elbow. He instantly burst into tears, and if there's one sentence that should not be linked up with Yuske Urameshi at all, let's make her freeze up. Her mind went to the past. She just couldn't stop it. Her 60-year-old self cried as he fell off the swing, even when it was with the bar. He fell out of the ground and ran over to him. She found him hugging his wrist in tears. She grabbed it from him and looked it over. Ow! Keiko, it hurts! He wailed, pulling his hand back. He stiffened as he clutched it tightly, as he sighed. She pulled out a small handkerchief she always carried and reached up, drying off his wet face. And somewhere, there's a little boy with red hair that is laughing. Yeah, that's what you get, Urameshi. Okay, Kobar, that's it. I get mine. And thus the Kobar's long losing streak began. Is the great Urameshi crying? She asked lightly. He smiled at her and did his best to stop the waterfalls. When you cried, I wiped away all of your tears. With his wrist in bad shape, they headed back home. You know, she said softly, you're going to have to get that checked up. No! He shouted, hugging it tightly, then wincing in pain. I ain't going to no doctor or anything. She sighed. Unless you want it to hurt forever, you have to, she said. She folded her hands behind her back. You shouldn't be so scared of doctors. They aren't out to get you, so don't say that. I'm not going and you can't make me. He shouted angrily, started running off. She grabbed his arm and turned her around. How about I go with you? She asked. And it won't be so scary, right? I won't leave you alone here. I promise. When you scream, I take away all your fears. He smiled at her. Okay, he said, kicking a rock over his shoe. I guess. It won't be so bad if you come with me. You can chase away all those nasty needle-bearing ducks from me with your yelling. She rolled her eyes. I do not yell like that, she said, picking up her pace a bit. You know, I only yell at you to straighten you up. Keep up this little bad boy routine, and you'll be in jail before you turn 10. Oh, yeah? Actually, he was in jail before he turned 8. Yes! See, I bet you, she said. Now, we need to get that wrist checked, or you'll be in pain for a long time. As he reached behind her, took his hand in her own, the unhurt one, before taking off at a jog. He tagged behind her, and she nearly dragged him along so he wouldn't stop his pace. And I've held your hand through all of these years. She snapped back to the present as he walked along the same walkway she had taken all these years ago. As her mind slowly turned to normal, fuzzy hallucinations of her younger self and him jogged away from her on the path, heading to the hospital. She reached out to grab them, but they vanished into thin air. Her hand slowly dropped back to her side as a light breeze picked up, dancing with all the loose items hanging off her body. A light strand of brown hair landed on her moist lips and stayed attached, until she raised a sinking hand to put it off. Come back, she whispered. I need you, but you still have all of me. She left the park, without thinking of anything else. She forced her mind to remain blank of all thoughts. She crashed someone, didn't even apologize. Before she could stop herself, her mind wandered. She waited patiently at a traffic light to cross when those vivid memories popped up yet again. It was so easy to tell when he was near. There was always a large racket, and people would always be shouting. Once she heard this, she turned around and danced in the direction of the booming voices. She'd always be drawn to it, knowing it was him. She just couldn't pull herself away when he was involved. Everyone said he was a bad influence, but as she let him alone, he'd just become worse. And it wasn't her choice. Once he was near him, she just flat out didn't want to leave. She was so content deep inside when he was around. You used to captivate me by your resonating light. She crossed the street mindlessly, the recent images floating out of her mind with each second. She walked past various people in the road, or stepping back onto the sidewalk. She hoped, with every last thing inside her heart and mind, that his face would disappear in the crowd, give off his trademark smile, and yell about how great this prank was. Then she smacked him over the head, for both of them would collapse into laughter. She was stuck in this little dream world, a world with her Yusuke in it. Everywhere she looked, she could picture him. He was always doing something foolish, but it always made her laugh nonetheless. She was locked in this never-ending vision of him. The funny thing was, she wasn't sure she wanted this world to go away. Now I'm bound by this life you left behind. She had arrived some time later at home, but skipped dinner. She just wasn't in the mood to eat. Her parents were getting worried about her. She wandered to her bedroom and dropped her back on the floor, before collapsing on her bed, uniform and all. She hated going to sleep at night. He always showed up in her dreams, and as the morning drew near, her happy dreams turned to nightmares, as she knew he'd leave again. She watched her alarm clock as the seconds passed by, one click at a time. She didn't want to sleep. In her dream world, where she could be happy with him, was the place she desperately wanted to be. But she knew it wouldn't last forever, as the buzz of her alarm would shatter the image in an instant, bringing forth the nightmare. She sometimes felt like she didn't want to dream, because he showed up even there, and this caused her even more heartbreak. It was a reminder that he was gone, and she hated it. She rolled over and glanced at the ceiling, following invisible lines her mind created to occupy her. It was nearing 10 o'clock by now, and the lights outside grew dim, and the sound died to a quiet mumble of night noises. Your face, it haunts my once pleasant dreams. He surprised her sometimes at night, by popping his face into her window. She always left the one open for him, in case he ever needed her for something, no matter how much her parents asked to close at night. But only one night has he actually gone out the window with him, and what a crazy night. She found herself laughing at the thought of it. She had just started junior high, and he was in the mood to celebrate. Keiko! He said singularly. Come on, come on! She grumbled and rolled in her bed. Go away. She mumbled to him. She covered herself with the blankets. He whipped them off and shook her. I gotta show you something. Come on, Keiko! He said, pulling her in a seated position. I know it's late, but it's gonna be so great. Come on, please! She glared half daggers at him before softening her anger. She looked so sweet, with those pleaded eyes and twisted frown on her face. A sentence I never want to see connected with Yuske Urameshi ever again is so sweet. She stood up. Fine, I'll go, but I have to be home before my parents figure out I'm gone. You bet, he said, snatching her arm and pulling towards the window. She stared up and stared at the window, pushing the memory out of her mind. She willed him to come through it, even though he had never set foot in the room again since that night. It wasn't the only time he had gotten her to do something out of character, though. He seemed to have that effect on her. Your voice, it chased away all the sanity in me. Attention everyone! Listening to my Immortal while thinking of your dead boyfriend is not exactly the best way to move on. Thank you. Gosh darn it, Neighborhood Watch Committee! A light evening breeze flew in from the window, playing with the light blue curtains. Before it died down, she heard the screech of tires on the pavement. As the curtains landed back in their place, her mind conjured up a loud breaking noise of a car, followed by a crash. She tensed up and clutched her face, fingernails digging deep into her skin. You know, guys, I realized if I was any more popular on YouTube, I could actually ask Lonnie Pator for a cameo to do the Yusuke lines. But I'm not. She felt tears escape her eyes once again, as the curtains began to dance, as she heard non-existent people shouting in fear and confusion. Sia, stop it! She whispered. She fell forward onto her mattress, burying her face in the comforter. I mean, seriously, have you guys realized just how much Lonnie sounds like Justin Cook? It's a miracle, really. Get on with it! Although she hadn't actually seen it happen, she kept visiting went on with him when he had died. Cursed her mind for forcing the image on him, but nothing she did could stop them. It happened once in school, during lunch. She had jumped up so quickly and dashed out the classroom. All of her classmates wondered what was wrong. Just go away, she whispered through the tears. She banged a tight fist on her bed angrily as she pulled her head up. Her face burned from the streaming tears, glancing from her fearful eyes. These wounds won't seem to heal. This pain is just too real. She stood up on her bed and closed her eyes, before falling backwards on her back. She bounced a little before settling. It was the fourth night now. The fourth night without him, where she would wake up to a world without him. It wasn't the same. It would never be the same again. It just couldn't. Sorry, I'm just thinking where this is set. Everyone kept telling her that her grief would slowly go away. They said she'd be fine, even if it took a little while. But she knew they were wrong. They were all wrong. She had told herself she would never be okay with this. She would never forgive herself. No matter how many days, weeks, months, or years went by, she would not get over it. Or maybe just a few weeks, it's considering how long that egg's going to take to charge up. This wasn't her life anymore. Her life had Yusuke in it. No matter how many hours went by, she'd be happy without the loudmouth troublemaker in her life. And Keiko Yukmera, there's just too much that time cannot erase. She wanted nothing more than anything to come back. She'd give anything for his return. She trusted him more than any other. They were always there for each other when they needed it, like some sort of sixth sense that allowed them to just be there when the other was having problems. She always covered him when he was down. She didn't care if he was late to school, missed dinner, or whatever. She wouldn't leave his side until he was back in high spirits, or at least until he practically forced her to get to her destination. And he always done the same for her, except her wouldn't leave, even when she threatened him. Neither was much of a wishy-washy crybaby, and they barely shed any water from their eyes. But when they did, the other would always be there. When you cried, I'd wipe away all your tears. Neither of them admitted when they were freaked out about anything either. If something creeped them out, they just played it cool. It was another thing they had in common. Especially when that red-haired teen called Kurama walked by. But he knew that she was afraid of. She knew the same of him. She always did her best when he was driven by fear to get him back to normal. And yet another sentence I'd never want to see associated with Yusuke. It didn't happen very often, though. Because being stubborn fool he was, he never said he was scared of anything. Yet somehow, she just always knew, and she was always there, even when she didn't intend to be. No outsider knew why the two of them were together so often. They seemed to hate each other to no end, but that was a complete opposite of reality. A reality that was now gone. When you scream, I wash away all your fears. See, they were so close, to the point where it was like they could read each other's mind and know what they were thinking. She never admitted their closeness to her, though. She figured he would never admit it to herself either. She didn't care, though. She knew it, and that was all that mattered. She would stay by his side no matter what, even if he annoyed her most of the time. It was his annoyance that she hated the most. How could she hate even that? She was the most important person to her, and she would always have taken the bad with the good. She stayed by his side even if the entire world was suddenly against him. That much she knew. She always been by his side. You know, technically I get worried if the world's against Yusuke. Worried for the world! I've held your hand through all these years! She felt an ice-cold tear escape her eye. She could never stand next to him again. It wasn't possible. In spite of this, she wouldn't let go of him. Yukmera Keiko found herself trapped in his memory, unwilling to gain her freedom. She clutched every last bit of his essence that she possibly could and vowed to hold on forever. Everyone told her to let go, and she saw him out. She blocked out their words and ignored their advice. Even now, he had his hands wrapped around her heart, and she kept it there. But you still have all of me. She knew he was gone. Everyone did. She replayed the thought over and over in her mind. She had forced herself to stop the tears so many times. She put up a strong front whenever anyone was around her. She pressed herself to go along through the day. He was dead. It was that simple. The first day was a living nightmare. When she was told the news, she froze up for an hour at least. She couldn't believe it. Then over her eyes it saw everything. It knew it was the truth. He was no longer in this world. On the second day she told herself this repeatedly. Every other thought went through her head was the same. He's gone. He's gone. She needed to accept it, no matter how much agony she was within her own self. Each night, she found herself in tears as she slowly established in her mind that he wouldn't be going to school anymore, that he wouldn't come to her house anymore, he wouldn't be anywhere anymore. I've tried so hard to tell myself that you're gone. And what was that? It was just plain not here anymore. She found herself choking on her own words as she clutched her chest. He's gone, but, she heard herself say, he'll be around, 'cause I'm always thinking of him. So how can he be gone? She sat up and looked around. Must have fallen asleep at some point last night, as the sun was now shining through her window brightly. She nearly glared at him for mocking her in her cheerfulness. He was alive in her. She could house two souls, or not. It didn't matter, though, because she was constantly reminded of him in absolutely everything. The feeling of him was all around her, like he was there. And though you're still with me. She felt like he had been there, at least. She wanted to believe it. He was truly dead, but not for her. His memory was to live on, even if his body wouldn't. Death was at the end, right? What was all this talk about the afterlife? Heaven? Hell? There was no way she would ever see him again. I reiterate my first part, Keiko Yukmera! Yet now, he wasn't here. She wasn't seeing him. She pulled on a new uniform for school and headed downstairs. She said nothing. Her parents watched her mournfully as she left without a goodbye, and headed down the street, back for school. He was everywhere to her. He was everything to her. Even if he wasn't with her now, They would be reunited. She knew it. But despite all this, she had never felt so lonely in her entire life. A nagging feeling of solitude overwhelmed her all the time. And so, she was back at square one. I've been alone all along. Keiko held her head up high as she walked to school. A smile plastered on her face, pushing through all despair inside her, keeping it locked up tight. She was getting over it. This was the image of herself she wanted to put forth. She hated all the sympathy she was getting from everyone. She nearly pulled out Yusuke once and cursed out a classmate. Hey, deck the son of a gun! It was all those little things he had managed to do to her. She was feeling the pain. She would always feel the pain. No matter how much time went by, she had concluded, she would always have a sense of sorrow inside. She knew this. She didn't want the others to know this. This was why she smiled. Keiko! Called her friend, dancing over to her. She put her hand on her shoulder. I know you hate me asking, but how are you? You seem so much better. She dropped her fake smile. I'm okay, she said, lightly removing her hand from her body. I know reality, and whether I like it or not, I had to accept it. Her friend sighed. I respect whatever you chose, she said with a warm smile. But I'm here for you. You know that. Keiko nodded as her friend dashed out to class. She looked up to the sky as a light breeze whirled around the schoolyard. He's out there somewhere, she whispered. I'll see him again. She felt it. All these years together weren't for nothing. Their kind of relationship wouldn't go away with death. She continued to cure his sadness, continued to soothe his anger with his phobias. Better therefore chase him down. Death wouldn't stop her from being by his side. Yusuke would always have her. Not even death do them part. Knowing this, she took a deep breath and closed her eyes tightly. And when she was ready to face the world of her other reality, the reality where Yusuke didn't exist in anywhere but her, she took one step forward, daring this world to take even that away from her. She wouldn't let them. She died herself before he was taken from her heart. Hey, you seem to have gotten bigger. Yusuke, you pervert! Smack! Ugh! Oh, I'm so sorry. Yusuke? Yeah. Hey, Keiko. I'm sort of borrowing this body for a bit. Listen, I need you to go back home and tell Mom not to bury me. I can't explain everything right now, but give me time, and I'll be back. I promise. A little while later. Oh, Keiko, the most marvelous thing just happened. I was cleaning his face when I saw him smile. Maybe Keiko doesn't have to live in that reality for very long, does she? These wounds don't seem to heal. This pain is just too real. There's just so much time cannot erase. When you cried, I'd wipe away all your tears. When you scream, I wash away all your fears. I've held your hand through all these years, but you still have all of me. Okay, show of hands. Who thinks that this fic would have been greatly improved if we had at least one scene of Keiko asleep and Yusuke looking at his egg as he rests on the banister, looks at Keiko. It just smiles softly to himself. Yusuke, are you planning on peeping on her? No, Botan, so totally was not planning on peeping on Keiko. Come on. Actually, you guys and I both know Yusuke Urameshi probably used his ghost power to haunt the girl's bathroom at least once. I mean, come on. When he was dead, wouldn't you think that Yusuke Urameshi would try to make sure Botan wasn't looking around and decide to sneak into the girl's washroom just once? I mean, I still totally would. The fact that I have to use that egg for redemption, be danged! But I digress. Have I mentioned Yu Yu Hakusho is one of my favorite manga? Oh yeah. I love it. And this fic, when I originally picked it up and read the summary, I thought it was a dead fic. Oh, the character died later on in the show, even though that's completely plot impossible, or oh, died because of some other reason. But instead, this was a surprisingly good look at what was probably going through Keiko's head during the time between Yusuke's death and his rebirth. I'm sorry, I thought I never would actually get to use those words for a manga that was not labeled DBZ. But there you have it. But then again, that has always been Yu Yu Hakusho's uniqueness, was that it started off with the protagonist dying. But this is a pretty dang good look at Keiko's relationship with her Yusuke, and how much she bonded with him, and how much she cares for him, and how much she loves him. At the same time, this shows their friendship growing, their childhood budding. Shows what Yusuke's death had on her. You guys remember this scene of how Keiko reacted when she saw Yusuke's dead body in the show? She was crying her eyes out. And of course, this also helped Yusuke realize he was more important than he realized. Which I love. I genuinely love that scene. Well, scene when Yusuke asked Botan, "Hey, Botan, ever have this feeling that you are more important than you realized?" All of us have moments like that, I suppose. I love that moment. Actually, truth be told, if I were to tell you all my favorite Yu Yu Hakusho moments, we would be here for a while. Because Yu Yu Hakusho is just that good. You think this is something you see me do, Kenshin? I'd be here for hours. But anyway, and it also really got to show just how Keiko would react and give us a chance to go good look. The grammar is also quite sound. And as for the song, I find it ironic that Daredevil used it for a funeral march. I guess it was to show Elektra's connection with her father and how sad it was. Heck, I've used this song multiple times for funerals. But when you try to use it for a romance, you need to sometimes take a step back and realize what the lyrics truly mean. I know it's not some sort of emo, "This girl will never leave me." This is basically a ghost telling his or her beloved, "You still have all of me. I'm never going to leave you. I may be dead, but my light will always be here." And it's also talking about the singer not being able to escape this person from haunting her. She can't get away from him. This is less romantic than somebody thinking, "Oh my god, I'm stuck with a ghost that'll never leave me. I can never get out of here." I mean, I suppose you could make it romantic and say, "Oh, you'll never leave my side." But I can't just help but think of how this is basically a ghost haunting your house and telling you, "I'm never going to leave you. I'm never going to go." Because ghosts are restless spirits. They do come because they don't have a final. They have some unfinished business. This ghost is basically telling the girl, "I'll never leave." I mean, I guess it all depends on what point of view you think that this song is coming from. From somebody who had lost a loved one, or from a ghost. Personally, I'm seeing it as a ghost telling you that he's still going to be there. Always watching, always haunting. But then again, Evanescence has always got some really good haunting scores. I can never understand why people try to tell me, "Oh, you listen to Evanescence, that means you're an emo goth guy." No, I listen to Evanescence because I love the songs. I love my Immortal. I love Bring Me to Life, and I love Haunted. Evanescence has some genuinely awesome songs. But no. Apparently, if I listen to Evanescence, I'm a black-haired pretty boy emo. I have one of three. But still, the song mixes well, but once again, we see the problem with the song fic. It basically is just a poem right now. There's no lyrics, and we have no idea who's singing it, who's talking it. That's the problem with some song fics. If you don't tell me who's singing what, I have no idea where this song is coming from. Right now, all I can think of is that Keiko is finally lost and has got Cocoa for Cocoa Puffs without Yusuke. Until Komaru shows up. Which leads to that romantic bit that I really love. You know the scene. Hey, nice kiss. I find really mentioned I love you, Hakusho. As a matter of fact, I think one of my main complaints about the anime is that, well, they cut out the whole entire part where he started helping out Ghost, and furthermore, get on with it! Sorry, Trix! Still, quite enjoyable short fic that was better than I was expecting. Well, that was one down, 1,000 more to go. I'll see you guys next time. By the way, how many of you guys think that most of the people who are going to watch this is going to come in and watch it because they think I'm doing My Immortal? And maybe think that I'm actually doing that classic of bad fanfics, which I shall let you know right now. I will never, ever do on this show. Never, ever. Not even if you paid me. Not even if I got Patreon and you paid me $100 to do this. Even if, say, Superman flew down my window and said, I will give you all my powers. Oh, but only if you agree to read My Immortal. I will not read it. Okay, the whole point of this whole entire show is to illustrate fanfics that nobody else has ever done. And to demonstrate most of the time, good fanfics that some people might ignore. I'm not going to stay by and just do, I'm going to do My Immortal because everybody's done it. No, I will not compromise my integrity by doing something like that. If the fic is going to be bad, then I'm going to make sure it's bad on its own merits, without being being obviously bad like My Immortal. Thank you.